historic day in American history. You're looking live at the House floor, as lawmakers get ready to vote on the impeachment of President Donald Trump. The debate raging for hours over the articles against the president, and it's all leading to an eventual vote later tonight. Speaker Nancy Pelosi trying to make the case for Democrats earlier.
Very sadly now, our founders' vision of a republic is under threat from actions from the White House. That is why today, as Speaker of the House, I solemnly and sadly open the debate on the impeachment of the President of the United States. It is tragic that the President's reckless actions make impeachment necessary. He gave us no choice. The President is an ongoing threat to our national security and the integrity of our elections, the basis of our democracy.
And Republican Congressman Doug Collins calling out the Democrats.
From the very moment that the majority party in this House won, the inevitability that we would be here today was only a matter of what date they would schedule it. Nothing else. In fact, how it even began to look even further was on September 24th. The Speaker announced an impeachment inquiry before even seeing the call transcript that we're going to hear so much about today. The clock and the calendar are terrible masters. They do not care about anything except getting the time done and the calendar fixed. They do not care about facts. They do not care about time. And one day the clock and the calendar will hang along this body in a very detrimental way.
This is all happening while President Trump is gearing up for a rally tonight in Michigan. And the president ripping into Democrats on Twitter, saying, "Such atrocious lies by the radical left. Do nothing Democrats. This is an assault on America and an assault on the Republican Party," with 4 exclamation points. Jesse, 4 of them. That is a lot. What do you think about the Democrats all saying they're very sad and solemn?
They're not sad. The squad was saying impeach the MFer, and everyone was cheering about a year ago. And this isn't a solemn day. They love it. The saddest part is they're mad because the polls turned against them. We'll get to that in a second, Juan.
Oh, my God.
When you're holding up a poster as well, like Pelosi is, with a flag on it, you've lost the debate. You don't need a poster. Just listen to what she has to say. And the Democrats talking about they're doing this for the flag. They burn flags. They kneel when the flags go up. And they're talking about the Constitution. When have we ever heard Democrats strictly adhering to the Constitution? Never. The whole thing is fake. We knew it a long time ago. And that's why, as the Q poll, the CNN poll, the USA Today poll, the NPR poll, the IBD, Monmouth, and Gallup all have impeachment underwater, Juan.
I have the Gallup poll.
The Democrats are basically, they're drowning in a flood that they created.
Can I show the Gallup poll?
Please.
This has the president up 6 points since impeachment began. And so now, Juan, since Jesse directed so much of that to you, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Well, I mean, obviously, what you just saw there was 45% of America, and it's about half in most polls, including the Fox poll, say he not only should be impeached, but removed from office as we move towards impeachment on this historic day
but the numbers
and a
have
Senate
gone down.
trial. And the second thing to say is about his approval. What did I miss?
No, I just was interjecting that the numbers for the president have improved since impeachment started.
Right, but the point is that the country's divided, Dana. That
but
this
it's always
country,
been divided, Juan.
No. Slow down. No. The country, when this began, back in September, is when we saw that Democrats in specific and much of the country suddenly vaulted to close to half of the country saying, based on what they know, the evidence that had been presented, this man should be removed from office. He has abused the power. And in terms of his approval numbers that you said are up like 6 points a Gallup, again, he's in the mid-40s. He has never hit 50%. And even in terms of impeachment, remember, and I keep saying this, Bill Clinton, when he was impeached, he was popular. He was like 60% of approval rating, and the demand for his impeachment was like a 29%. To the contrary, with Donald Trump, it's half the country, and his approval numbers are under 50%.
Okay, but the number that President Trump is at now is the same level that President Obama had at this point in his reelection effort. Would you like to hear from Al Green?
Well, actually, I want to talk about the reality of this.
Okay.
Trump is not going anywhere. That is why Pelosi is so somber, because she knows she handed Schumer an FBOS, a flaming bag of shift. And the more somber the tones are in the media and the Dems, which, by the way, matches perfectly. Did you notice how CNN and the Dems are exactly the same somber tones? They're exactly the same. They're on the same team. But the more somber they are, the bigger the joke they play on themselves. I don't want to criticize you, Dana, because I know you didn't write that word historic. But what they want you to believe is that this is historic, right? They keep saying, oh, this is historic, this is historic. Yes, maybe it's historic, but not for the reasons that you think. It's historic because it's the first impeachment that is based on future actions. They couldn't find the crime. So now they're saying you got to get him out of office in case Trump commits a crime. Okay, so now it's Minority Report, the Tom Cruise movie. Second, the media is never going to be the same. This is historical, and that's awesome because this whole process in the last 3 years has pulled back the curtain. And we see the media's arrogance, their elitism, their bias all together, all the lies that they portray as fact. And so when Trump correctly diagnosed fake news as enemy of the people, now you're seeing it unfold. And this is what's driving them crazy because it's not going to happen. Trump's going to remain president. He's going to probably be reelected using the very tools that these people thought they could use against him.
Congressman Chris Stewart, Katie, I'll have you react to this because it speaks to your point about about future actions and what could happen in the future. If this is soundbite number 10 in the control room, if you could play Chris Stewart earlier today.
If this impeachment is successful, the next president, I promise you, is going to be impeached. And the next president after that, if you set this bar as being impeachable, every president in our future will be impeached. It erodes our republic in ways that our founding fathers recognized. They got it right. High crimes and misdemeanors. Other than that, settle it at the ballot box. I look forward to that day.
Katie.
Yeah, I mean, Democrats always claim that they are doing this for the country, that they're doing this to protect democracy, as Pelosi said, to uphold the republic, but they're actually thinking very short term. And this entire process has shown that they are complete hypocrites when it comes to that line, that narrative that they take. This is about protecting the vote of the American people. Democrats only care about democracy when they win. But when there's a Republican who wins, they protest. There are lots of protesters out all across the country today. They want to impeach the president. Now they're doing it. This is like the fourth time they've tried to do this. So let's go back and remember what they tried to impeach him for earlier. Al Green, for example. They tried to impeach him for criticizing people in the NFL who kneeled for the flag. Okay. Nancy Pelosi today seems like, you know, that the national anthem is like a good thing to now be revering as she's trying to win this fight. They tried to impeach him for going after the squad. They tried to impeach him for saying bad things about third world countries. So we've been through this before. They've lost all credibility, especially in light of the Russia case, putting all of their stake in Robert Mueller, and now trying to put all of this in front of the American people with no clear, compelling evidence, as Will Hurd has said all along. And again, you know, you can look at this and say maybe the call wasn't perfect, as the president's arguing, but we shouldn't be impeaching him. And I find it interesting that Tulsi Gabbard, as we look ahead, there's a debate tomorrow. She's supposed to be voting today. She didn't show up for the vote. And she said that she's going to introduce a censure instead of voting for impeachment. And that's
so we brought up Al Green. This is a congressman who has been calling for president's impeachment, I think, since the first day.
Since the 1950s.
Anyway, early on, he's been wanting this. Take a listen to what he had to say today.
If this president is allowed to thwart the efforts of Congress with a legitimate impeachment inquiry, the president will not only be above the law, he will be beyond justice. We cannot allow any person to be beyond justice in this country. In the name of democracy, on behalf of the republic, and for the sake of the many who are suffering, I will vote to impeach, and I encourage my colleagues to do so as well.
If he had a legitimate case, why would he need to show up with a giant photo of a little girl that had nothing to do with impeachment and was also part of a debunked story about separation? If he was purely confident that he had a case, he wouldn't have need to lie to America, which he has been for quite a while.
I think the rage just got the best of the Democrats. If we remember, there were Democrats who refused to certify the election results. There were Democrats who boycotted the inauguration. This campaign of the president was spied on. They hatched a partisan witch hunt, accused him of being a traitor to the country, of working with the Russians. That was all a hoax. And the day that hoax evaporated with Mueller's testimony bombing, they concoct this other fake whistleblower story. And Juan said something very interesting about the polls where they were when this whole thing started in September. I agree. The polls were against the president then. But as more people read the transcript and as more people heard what the Democrats' case was, those polls turned right upside down.
Oh, God.
And that's where we are right now.
The polls remain stagnant on this point.
You keep saying it's divided, but you don't tell the audience about the trend. Don't lie about the trend. The trend's not in your favor. Everybody can look it up.
Okay, yes, please.
I'm not going to argue with you about the polls.
I don't want to argue because the polls are right.
And the audience knows
you are ridiculously wrong. But let me just say this. What you hear from my colleagues here is a request for you, the audience, to, one, not treat it as a historic day, even though this is just the third U.S. president who's going to be impeached. Secondly, ignore it. It's the Democrats. Oh, they're so wrong. They've always wanted to impeach him.
We've covered this every hour of the day.
It's the media.
We've taken live hearings for the whole season.
And we should, because it's historic and because
the Democrats made this history. Donald Trump made a phone call.
Yeah,
the Democrats
and he made a phone call that was about his political interests, not about our interests.
Read the transcript, Juan.
You know the famous line, when scoundrels call up all their patriotism, it's to disguise their calumny.
Is that why Pelosi had the American flag?
What you see is the Republicans trying to divert attention from a clear case of abuse of power by this president.
I'll give you another line. Winners write history. And when Trump wins re-election, he's going to have a mandate like you've never seen.
Let me say, if
he's in a second term after being impeached in the first term, the Democrats ran out of ammo after this one.
We have a
constitution
that says that the president is not above the law. He is one of us.
This guy
not below the law either.
I do want to make a point about the fairness argument because I want you to take a listen to this. Is soundbite number 4 up in the control room. So, Katie, I think this is the other thing. As people have watched all of this, the issue of fairness has come up over and over again. Here's Doug Collins earlier today.
The minority leader in the Senate went out and did a press conference and said, they denied my witnesses. They denied my request. Well, welcome to the club, Mr. Schumer. That's exactly what's happened over here for the last 3 months.
I wonder about the Democrats making that decision, right, not to allow witnesses from the Republicans and now kind of having to pay a price for it.
And they've given Chuck Schumer really nowhere to go, and they've made his demands look really silly, considering Adam Schiff wasn't willing to give any wiggle room to Republicans when we went through this the first time, again, damaging their credibility on the issue. But I think that when the president talks about due process and fairness, when Republicans talk about it, everyday Americans can relate directly to that. They don't want to be falsely accused of a crime or of doing something that they did not do or being removed from a position simply because people don't like them or have a disagreement with their policies. And that is where I think Democrats are severely underestimating the blowback of this next year. And also, you know, if Democrats really had a solid argument on this, there wouldn't be Democrats changing their party to Republican, and there wouldn't be more defections today after all of the evidence that has been presented for Democrats to vote against.
There's also something that, did you guys see this? I don't know how real it is, but it's real enough that it made a lot of it was making some headlines just a couple of hours ago. There is a movement amongst some on the Democratic side to have Nancy Pelosi not send the articles of impeachment to the Senate, denying the president a trial and the opportunity to be acquitted. What do you think of that?
Well, here's the thing. What they've done is they've belittled the actual importance of impeachment, right? Now anybody can do it. So it's like next time. And by the way, everybody gets their turn at bat, right? So it's going to happen. I think what Trump has done with impeachment is to his advantage. What seems to be an injury actually turns into like a badge of honor. It's like this is going to help galvanize his base. He's probably going to win re-election because it is such a fraud that now he's like, yeah, I'm not only am I going to be impeached, but I'm going to be the first re-elected. I'm going to be re-elected after impeachment.
That will be a historic day.
Yeah, but here's
that'll be a sad.
Juan, I know you'll agree with me. DC style is in need of improvement. Yeah. But anyway, okay, so here's the other comedy part of this. The 2010s are the greatest decade in the history, probably, of the world. We're seeing the greatest economy in history, probably the best year, 2019, in our economic modern history. The custodian of that economy, in a time where we're seeing reductions in disease, increase in income, is being impeached. In the best year, in the best economy, in the best decade of the world, the Democrats want to get the custodian out of the job.
Every decade that we have experienced has been better than the last, Greg. So
But this
that's
one's
not
way
exactly
better.
a hallmark.
Way better one.
No,
and I actually credit you.
I think that we have, as a human race, made tremendous progress. And to suggest that, Donald Trump showed up and the billionaire made it all right in terms of our economy.
Why does it matter about his money?
Is to ignore what Obama did in terms of setting this up.
So we should impeach him because of Obama.
I let it go, but I just want to make one point. Talk about
country.
Democrats. There's a Republican who's gone to Tanzania to avoid this vote. I mean, it's ridiculous. You have the problem here is Republican blindness to facts of a real case and say, oh, no.
Where are the
case
facts?
exists.
Where's the crime? That's why you're preventing. You're doing an impeachment to prevent the future.
Maybe it's the president's own transcript of his own phone call,
Okay,
which actually was a perfect phone call.
I'm going to play soundbite number 12. This is Adam Schiff, and this goes to the thing that you were talking about, that they're impeaching him for future actions because they're worried about the 2020 election. Soundbite 12, please.
The timing is driven more by the fact that the plot continues. If the president is seeking still to essentially cheat in the next election, that is not a remedy for his misconduct. The remedy is impeachment. And that's why we've moved forward, and we've done so, methodically, but nonetheless with a sense of urgency.
Jesse, what do you think? I mean, he said that the president is seeking still to essentially cheat in the next election.
It's a lie, just like they're lying about Trump cheating in the last election. People lie because they can't accept the truth. And the truth is the Democrats lost in 2016, and they're going to win. They're going to lose again in 2020. They're protecting their own base from going crazy because they need to send it poison to keep it calm. Because right now, it's crazy, and that's why we got impeachment in the first place. None of these clowns can beat the president, and that's why they're trying to pre-impeach him. This is just a short circuit of democracy.
Let's go.
And to say that Donald Trump gets credit for Barack Obama's economy is nonsense.
Okay.
You know that. They predicted he'd crash the economy. So which economy is it?
Okay.
A couple months ago, when there was going to be a recession, Trump was blamed. And now stock market records are being smashed, and it's Obama's.
Can I try
Okay, let's go to the facts.
You can't talk over both sides of your mouth.
Hang on. Let's just go to the facts for a second and stop with the rhetoric. I mean, the facts are the facts, Jesse, and
That's rhetoric.
That's not rhetoric. The fact is,
The facts are the facts.
Rudy Giuliani continues to travel over the Ukraine, trying to collect information on the president's likely opponent, Joe Biden, and you say, there's no threat for the president cheating again.
So Biden can do whatever he wants overseas, and we can't know
get
about
out of
it?
here.
Okay.
Joe Biden has his lawyer
Biden's
overseas.
family can do whatever they want overseas, and we can't know about it?
This is Republican blindness on display for the 5 R's.
Trying to impeach the president
go
for
for it.
fingering his
Let's talk about
crimes.
some facts, since that's what Juan wants to talk
Yes.
about. Okay, Hillary Clinton literally paid for foreign involvement in the 2016 election by paying a company, a firm that was using a foreign spy to get information from Russian sources to be used by the FBI to go after presidential candidates.
And it was
so
all
if
fake.
she were to win, which she didn't, she would have had to be impeached over that, because that is far worse than anything that the president said in his phone call. But back to Adam Schiff real quickly. That is what he said is a perfect example of claiming to protect democracy while completely undermining it and accusing the president falsely of things that he did not do. You have Jerry Nadler saying we can't trust the next election to decide or fix the problem. So if this was happening in a foreign country, in a democracy where power is supposed to be peacefully transferred, the State Department would be issuing condemnations of the behavior of the opposing party. And yet here we are with the continuing this narrative when they're attacking.
And don't forget, the Democrats could come back to this well over and over again until the election. You can impeach more than once if they wanted to do that.
Hooray!